AI is transforming how brands are discovered online. And of course, with that, the rules of SEO are changing fast. Join me today for Strategy Talks episode with search strategist Dale Bertrand as we dive into the AI driven search and what that means for your visibility. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. This is Strategy Talks.
Let's strategize together. Let's hear it from an expert. Join the conversation, it's informative and free. You and me, let's talk some strategy. Now here's your host, Morin-van.
Hello, everybody. I'm back with another episode of Strategy Talks. I am so glad that you're here with me today. If you're here live on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, I want to welcome you and thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching this live show on the replay, put hashtag replay in the comments, especially if you have a question for myself or my guest. Last but not least, as always, I want to welcome those of you who listen to Strategy Talks as a podcast. You are not forgotten and you are very much appreciated as a listener. So I'm going to bring onto the stage with me, right from the green room, my friend Dale Bertrand. How are you today, Dale?
I'm doing great, Dorian. Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk about AI search because everything has changed. We are in the Q4 of 2025. I feel like, maybe this is a football analogy. I don't know. Are we dropping the ball? What's happening? Can we catch up before 2026? What are we missing? What is happening in SEO, in search, now that AI is on the scene? I know that you've talked recently at Inbound. You went to Maycom. You've been all over the place. You're flying all over the country and you're teaching people. And now you're here. So tell us, what do we need to know? And especially if somebody is thinking about making changes because they're still doing old SEO, what are some of the first things that they need to know?
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind what's changing and what's not changing.
Okay.
We're all concerned because AI has burst onto the scene, and what AI changes is really three things: the way we do our work as marketers because of AI tools, but then also the way our customers are making purchase decisions because they're doing research with AI, but then also how the search platforms are changing, and that changes the way we do inbound marketing. So every brand is going to have a different, and I know you don't want a depends answer, but we're going to talk it through. Every brand is really going to have a different response because it depends on how your customers are changing as a brand. And if you hear anybody, regardless of whether their name is Dale Bertrand or if you hear anybody on the podcast saying, this is what you need to do, I would think twice, because it really depends on what your customers are doing in your market. So a lot of what I'm talking to my clients about is, how will you know when your customer search behavior changes, when they start using ChatGPT, when they start using AI overviews in Google's AI mode, so that you can make that shift and start to actually notice. So what we're doing with clients is number one, looking at analytics to see, and specifically looking at referral traffic from ChatGPT. That's going to be very small now compared to your other organic traffic. But I was
going to ask about that. Because I've seen, I'm on LinkedIn like you, we're reading stuff and people are like, oh, it's a big deal and see how much traffic. And then when you look at percentages, I've seen some people, including you, say the percentages is just still really, really, really small. Does it still give you an indication though?
So yes and no. Okay. So yes, it's important to look at it. When I look at analytics, I see some brands with less than 1% traffic coming as referral traffic from ChatGPT, but then there's other ones where it might be as high as 5%. And that difference really does matter, because the ones with a higher percentage, it's grown pretty quickly in the last several months, and we need to pay attention to that momentum. That's important. The other thing, and the reason why I say yes and no, is because you're not going to see all of the conversations that AI is having about your brand and your products and your services. You're just not going to see it. Like, some of it is showing up as referral traffic from ChatGPT, but some of it's not leaving ChatGPT. It's just staying there. Some of it is zero click, where you're not going to see any clicks whatsoever, because they might be getting their answer from an AI overview. And then there's other traffic that might come from Google's AI mode, but you wouldn't know because Google doesn't really tell you the difference when you're looking at organic traffic in Google Analytics. So that's the other side of it. So the other side of that coin is qualitative. Like, what are you doing to talk to your customers, to understand how they're buying, and to ask the right questions? And I'll give you an example there. Like, every business like mine, I mean, I run an SEO agency. Every business has asked, maybe on the form or maybe when they get customers on the phone for the first time, like, how did you hear about us? And that's a good question to ask. But what we're doing is diving deeper with more questions. How did you hear about us? How did you search? What search platforms did you use? What information sources did you consult making this purchase decision? What online communities might you be a part of where you would get information? And then if you heard about us word of mouth, who? Was it a colleague? Was it your brother, your sister? Like, and then how did they find out about us? Did they work with us before? So that's a lot of questions. But
Yeah.
the reason why we're kind of adding that burden of several more questions, either to the form or when we talk to new prospects, is because analytics is just not giving us the complete picture anymore. It's just not. Like, analytics gives us numbers. And there was a while there that as digital marketers, our job was to look at the numbers, and if they're too low, turn a knob. If they're too low, if they're too high, turn this other knob. And that's not marketing. That's pressing buttons in analytics platforms or advertising platforms, or maybe in your CMS. Instead, we as marketers need to be talking to our customers, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. Maybe you can dial them, right? I work with a lot of e-commerce brands, and the first thing I tell them is your first 100 customers, you need to call every single one of them and ask them all these questions. Why did you choose us? What other brands were you considering? Why did you pull the trigger on the purchase? Like, things like that, to learn as much as you possibly can. But every marketer needs to be doing that. And you could imagine talking to your sales team, or looking at support tickets, or hanging out on sales calls, or listening to recordings. But something like, you need to be talking to your customers, and that fills in the gaps. And then you also have to understand that you can't trust analytics like we used to. Analytics gives us numbers, like it might give us the number 500. But the question is, what does 500 even mean until you can like really talk to your customers and ask the right questions and understand the why behind the numbers. And that's always been true with analytics, but now it's true more than ever because we're not getting the complete picture anymore in analytics.
Yeah. So let me, as you're talking, Dale, I'm an organic specialist, right? I've focused for the last 15 years on content strategy, on content creation, organic content, conversations, communities. And it's always been hard for me and my team, the organic team, to prove quote unquote ROI. It's not impossible, but it's always been. And I've seen this big debate going on now. Organic is dead. And then other people go, no, it's even more important now because that's where the real people are, right? So when we're talking about what you were just mentioning, I'm like, wait, what you're just saying about, this content and what's happening with AI and not being able to prove maybe where these leads are coming from and the zero click, that's what's been happening with organic for a long time. So the one of the ways that I measure success with my clients is we do sentiment analysis, right? We have conversations, like you said, with your clients. We do social listening. We find out what people say about us, think about us. The part is also really important because that's where you get access to the client prospects or past clients and really have that conversation with them. So I love that you just said that, because I think for me, that just kind of proves that, organic and AI, their organic is not going to go away because AI is here. It's actually going to probably be even more important.
Yeah. And I love that you're talking about organic, because a lot of times when we say organic, what we mean is Google. Google organic,
Right.
right? But organic is really, because we think about it as like harvesting organic demand.
Yeah.
If you've got a brand and you sell a product or a service, there are customers out there in need that need your product or service. And many of them are searching for a solution to their problem, a problem that your product or service solves. So the question is, how do we get in front of them? Like, what is that surface area, online, offline, or otherwise, that we can get in front of them at the right time, whatever that is, either like right when they're making this purchase decision, or when they discover they have a problem, or maybe even before, so that we're top of mind when they do discover that they have a problem. And for the longest time, including today, like Google Organic was like the easiest way to do that. You could write some content, you get some free traffic, and then a small fraction of that traffic, very small percentage of that traffic, actually converts into customers. And because it was free and abundant, we weren't asking too many questions. Like what it comes down to is the organic traffic that we're getting from Google, the vast majority of it was garbage, low quality, just searching for something unrelated to what we sell. But we didn't question it because it doesn't matter, because we're getting customers from it. But now we've got to flip that, because when our customers, like, more and more are using AI to learn about their problem, learn about solutions, learn about our brand, they're not going to come to our website to do it. So it's not a traffic game anymore. SEO was a traffic game. GEO, which I choose to call it, generative engine optimization.
Okay,
Some people call it AIO, SE, SI.
I know.
If anybody argues about the acronym, tell them to get a life. Get a life, people. Like,
So
you know what I
you
mean?
call
Like,
it GEO.
I'll call it DALE for Dale. It doesn't matter. Like, so first of all, get a life. Second of all, I'm calling it GEO, so just live with it. And when you're doing GEO, like, the result you're going for is customer acquisition, not just traffic acquisition. And the reason why that's important is because there are times where you could shift your focus to GEO, optimizing for these AI search platforms, and you're getting less traffic, and that's okay, because revenue, more business growth, more customers, and that's what matters at the end of the day. There are a lot of marketers. I'm a part of this industry. I'm not going to call you out, Doreen, but you might also consider yourself a part of this digital marketing industry. But a lot of digital marketers haven't really been upfront about the traffic they're generating and how low quality much of it is. And it's kind of like when the tide goes out, you can see who's swimming naked. It's like, all right, well, traffic has gone away, but a lot of brands are still getting the same revenue, or they might even be growing the revenue. So they're starting to question, well, how valuable was that traffic in the first place? So when you're doing GEO, you're optimizing for AI search engines. The goal is to really not to generate traffic, but to educate AI so that it qualifies your prospects for you, so that the traffic you're getting is much higher quality, so that you're growing your business. And if your boss complains about traffic going down, tell them, like, hey, whoa, wait, act all surprised. I thought you hired me to grow your business. Like, why are you asking me to chase vanity metrics? I'm a growth marketer, not a vanity marketer. And then they're going to be like, what are you talking about? Because the last guy I had in your role was, bragging about all this traffic. Yeah, that traffic was shit. The vast majority of it didn't convert. Here's the numbers. What we did a study of healthcare brands. And what we saw was that over the last year, many of them had lost 40% of their traffic, and publishers were hurt a lot more than providers. The providers are actually doing fine. But their conversion rates went up by 60% during that time. Wow. Because traffic is shifting from coming from traditional Google. Now some of it is coming from, like, a small percentage is coming from AI. And that AI traffic is just much better qualified. So the way we want to think about it is that, like, our customers trust AI, whether we like it or not. They trust, in many cases, they trust AI more than they trust our brand.
Sure.
Zero-click search, which we're all afraid of because it's stealing our traffic, it's actually reducing friction on behalf of our customers. So we as brands and marketers, like, we need to rely on AI to handle objections up front for us, to steer the right intents, the intents that actually want to buy, to our website where they can transact. The other intents, we're just not going to see them, and it's okay. So we need to think about how we can educate AI so that it's qualifying our prospects for us.
Okay. So how do we do that? So what are some things like, somebody's listening is watching this podcast, this live show, and they're like, okay, Dale, I hear you. Where do I start?
Well, we'll start by asking AI about your brand. So I had a really insightful conversation. I'm not going to out the person I was talking to, but they are very high up at one of these hyperscaler AI labs. And he was saying, Dale, we have a bullshit detector. Like if you write crappy marketing content, we're not even going to crawl it, index it. No way it's going to show up in our AI search engine. And I was like, okay, tell me more about this bullshit detector, because I'm a marketer and I don't want to write marketing bullshit that's just going to get like filtered out, right? So what he said, Dale, I'm not going to answer your question. You need to go ask AI that question. And I said, why? He said, because AI is the bullshit detector. And I was like, boom, mind blown, because like what that means is I can write a piece of content, give it to Gemini if I care about Google, give it to ChatGPT if I see that my customers are searching in ChatGPT. Same thing with Perplexity or Claude. And then ask it like, hey, what do you think of my marketing content? Like, is this valuable? Is it fluffed? Is it something you would ignore? And you get a good answer directly from the AI. So that's one piece of it. And then you can expand that, this whole concept of just ask the AI. Like you can expand that to everything that you're doing. Like I have an example in one of my workshops where I pretend like I work for a well-known dog food brand. Let's say Purina. I don't mean to call them out, but and I don't work for them.
Yeah.
But I go to Google I go to ChatGPT and Google's AI mode, and I just say like, what are the top 5 dog food brands? And that brand wasn't there when I did it. And I said, okay, well, why isn't Purina on this list? And as a marketer, if you happen to be working in-house for Purina or whatever brand you guys do work for, who are listening to this, like that's a gold mine. Like you want to know why. Like imagine with Google search back in the day when it's just ranking 10 links. Imagine if I could just go to Google and say, man, I've been optimizing the heck out of my website for the past 12 months, and I'm still not on the first page. What am I doing wrong? Like that would have been a dream come true for a technical SEO guy like me, right? But you can actually do that with AI. So why are you not recommending my brand? How does my brand compare to this competitor, that competitor, or the top brands in the space? You can ask it like, what are customers saying about my brand? And how does that differ from my biggest competitor and what their customers are saying about their brand? Because it's trained on almost everything that's ever been written on the web. So it knows about customer reviews and sentiment and around your brand and all of that. So that's really a big part of it, which is to remember to ask AI.
Wow, that is such a good tip. That is amazing. I got to go, like, as soon as we're done here, I'm going to go do that. I've done it with a little bit here and there, but I haven't actually been that specific. Like I wrote some blog posts recently. I need to go throw them in there and say, is this any good? Is this going to, can you, like, what do you think about it? That's awesome. So Dale, when somebody's making the shift from SEO to GEO, I'm assuming that the team that you're working on is going to need some new skills, maybe some new people, maybe some new tools. Can we talk about what that looks like? Because I think people are going to be like, I want what Dale's doing. I understand the concept. I need to be found. I understand 0 clicks here, like all of that stuff, but how? So what skills, what tools?
So like I said, it starts with understanding like what information do your customers need when they're making a buying decision and where are they searching. And then from there, we usually start with optimizing your existing content. It's a lot easier if you have a library of existing content to start there. And then you can start to make your content more relevant for those searches, those inquiries, or add the information that your customer needs. But you want to make sure that it's relevant. Like relevancy and recency are what really matters.
Mm-hmm.
On the relevancy side, if you are, let's say a vacuum for a household with pets and you have allergies, something like that. So there are a number of topics that are relevant to that. like Dyson vacuum cleaners or HEPA filters or allergies or the hypoallergenic cats and dogs. And like there's a lot of those topics. So you want to identify the ones that are purchase intent topics, like people who are actually making a purchase decision are interested in this type of information, and make sure you put that information on there. And then another thing that's really important is like recency. There's some queries where like freshness matters more than others, but we're just seeing a strong bias around like content that's fresh and updated. So what we like to do is take a look at the content you already have, find like the top 10% in terms of conversion. This is basically your most valuable most valuable content, and then you update it. And here's an example I always love to give. Like imagine if you were writing about the Paris Olympics and you have two different articles. One article writes about the Paris Olympics in the past tense, and one writes about the Paris Olympics in the future tense. The one that's in the future tense is an older article. We just know that as humans because we can infer a date on that article, which is before the Olympics happened. And then the one that talks about the Olympics in the past tense, we can infer a different date, which is a date after the Olympics happened. So that's what AI is doing. It's looking at your content, inferring a date, ignoring the date in the URL, ignoring the date that you put at the top of the page, because that's easy to game and cheat on, right? But it's inferring a date based on what it knows about the topic, and then figuring out, oh, this is a more up-to-date, this is a more relevant piece of content. And then there are other signals, like has it changed recently, and the date on the page, and other signals. But in general, we've noticed it does a pretty good job of figuring out how recent an article is based on the topics and concepts and recent events, like events that are written about in the content. So that's a slightly technical answer, but I wouldn't even go that technical. I would just say update your content, so it's actually useful to real humans.
Yeah, that makes sense. So talking about seasonal stuff, trending stuff, what's happening in the world, I'm assuming what's happening in
and make sure it's all relevant. So it's just like I could talk about what our president said yesterday, and that would really like make it pretty fresh, but it has to be relevant. And I'm not going to make a political statement right now. But it really does need to be fresh, relevant, and helpful for the customers that you're going after, and that's work. Right? So that's why I'm saying first narrow down to the top 10% of your content and then decide what you can update.
Yeah. So who would you hire to update content like that?
Not a writer.
Right.
Not to offend any writers who host podcasts.
No.
But but lucky for you, you've got many other skill sets.
Yeah.
So we want a content marketer, like somebody who can do that research, somebody who understands traditional SEO and how AI works, somebody who's capable of thinking in semantic space, not keyword space. So keyword space is what words are my customers typing into Google, and I want to make sure that they're on the page. The problem is Google doesn't work that way anymore. It's a semantic search engine where they're looking just like ChatGPT or AI, like they're trying to understand the prompt or the query that you just put in and what type of information would resolve or satisfy that prompt or query, and then find semantically relevant content online, which is different from keyword research, keyword targeting at the end of the day. So when you're thinking in semantic space, you're thinking what topics are relevant to the conversations that my customers are having with AI. And to figure out what conversations your customers are having with AI, you need to ask them. And you can look at referral traffic from ChatGPT in your analytics and see what pages they're landing on. Pages that are deep in your website. Like, of course, they're going to land on your homepage, but they're also going to land on topically relevant pages based on the conversations they were having with ChatGPT. So that's also a clue. But you're going to need to. There's another huge way, another huge thing that we do, which is scraping online communities. You can imagine maybe it's a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group or something like that. But usually what we end up, or it could be a Reddit, it could be a subreddit. But usually what we find is you can pay to join a private community. If you're targeting HR professionals, then find a private HR professionals community, pay the $50 for 1 month or whatever, scrape it, and then just pull out, figure out what. I have a great prompt that I use for that. Like once you've been able to scrape some threads from a private community, then I have a prompt that says like, extract verbatim quotes from this conversation thread, and specifically pull out emotionally charged statements, like something like "this sucks" or "I love this," and requests for assistance or questions, like "Can you help me find an SEO agency?" or something like that. So the scraping also really works when it comes to discovering those micro topics that are semantically relevant, because we're thinking in semantic space, not keyword space. When you're doing keyword targeting, you're doing keyword research to discover the keywords that your customers are typing into Google, but that's obsolete.
Right.
When you're doing
not
semantic targeting, you need to discover the micro topics that are relevant to the purchase decision, and the information that your customers need to make that purchase decision.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty deep. So when you've built a team that does this for your clients, what are some of the skills that you're looking for in the people that work for you? I know you do a lot of training with your team, which you talk about on LinkedIn. That's why I know you have thinking sessions, you try things, you do case studies. What are the skills that would push somebody forward? If somebody's listening and they've been in SEO, they want to get into GEO, or somebody who's like, what should they do? How should they move forward when they, obviously they need a mentor, they need to connect with people, they need to join a community, but what are some things that you could advise them to do that you've done that has really made a difference for yourself and your team?
Yeah, I would say like I just said, well, part of it is like what I just said. So instead of learning keyword research, learn like semantic targeting, and even better than that, like customer research. That's such a hard thing to do for a lot of digital marketers. But then from there, like data-driven content, so data analysis, data exploration, data collection, surveying. There's a lot of ways to find data. It might be proprietary data at your brand. It might be surveys. It might be publicly available data that you can grab. But they also need to be creative in the sense that they can figure out what to do with it. Like, how do I make this data, whatever it is, relevant to my audience? And that's going to be some type of analysis that you're doing on that data. And that is so much easier when you know how to use AI really well. When you can give AI a data set. We use Julius.ai because it's better with data than ChatGPT. That's a good tip for people.
Okay.
But Julius.ai, you can give, if you have a data set, you can give it to Julius.ai, describe your target audience, and then ask it for suggestions on analyses that it could do that would make the data more useful to that target audience. An AI native marketer. So that's the thing. Like, instead of a writer, I want an AI native marketer that would know how to collect context around, like for example, around my brand and my target audience. So that would be like the persona and call transcripts, and these will be call transcripts internally with our SMEs, but then also with customers, and then collecting and curating that context so that they can use AI to help them brainstorm as a thought partner. Now, AI is not doing the work. It's not the way we're thinking about it at all. Well, the way we're thinking about it is, what context could we give AI such that it would help us to brainstorm? But then you, as the human marketer, you're the one with the intuition around which ideas. And those ideas will be like content formats, or it might be an idea for a webinar series, or it might be topics for content. But you as a marketer need to bring your intuition and experience to the table to really land the plane and choose like finally what you're going to do. So I would love to hire a content marketer who is like so much more than just a writer in all of those areas.
Yeah, that makes sense. Dale, we are at 29 minutes. Where can people connect with you, your agency? Where are you online most active? And I will obviously put the links in the show notes, but for those listening that want to know, how can they best connect with you?
Well, so I'm on LinkedIn talking about AI and SEO and GEO, and also a lot of what I do is like how to use AI for SEO and content, because that's absolutely huge, especially now we have AI agents now doing some of the work. Like that just really blow your mind. And so connect with me on LinkedIn, but also if you have a question for me, just reach out directly, Dale@fireandspark.com, all spelled out. Happy to answer questions in email, and I'm not afraid to give away my email address. So feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to all of you who stayed to the end, who listened to the end. I appreciate you being here. I'll be back next week with another episode of Strategy Talks. Bye, everybody.